The British Monarchy is one of the most famous people in the world and is the highest representative of the United Kingdom. Currently, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II is the reigning monarch, as she succeeded to the throne on February 6, 1952, on the death of her father, King George VI, and has been the queen for nearly 7 decades. In comparison, if we look around the world today, we no longer have as many kings and queens as we used to. But if we go back in history, nearly every country in the Western world had some sort of king or queen royal family. Over the years, countries moved toward the Republic-Democrat system and grew out of the ruling monarch system. However, some countries like the United Kingdom adopted a constitutional monarchy, which means a system of democratically elected parliament along with a largely symbolic British monarchy. So that brings us to our curious question: what does the British Queen do in today's world? Before we answer that, we ask you to hit the like button if you love watching our videos. Your support will help us to bring more of these videos to answer some fascinating and interesting curious questions. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, The Curious Path, to stay connected and get notified of our new videos. Now let's get back to our question. While we may think a monarch has absolute power of all affairs, the truth is the current British system has evolved to be quite different. In 1215, King John was forced at the point of a sword to sign the Magna Carta, which is a royal charter of rights that acknowledged the British monarch's limits of power and was the start of the House of Commons and Lords. Since then, some British monarchs have tried to assert absolute power at grave consequence, the last occurrence of which was King Charles I when he tried to rule out without a parliament. This unfortunately resulted in beheading of King Charles I and abolition of monarchy in 1649. The British government then ruled without a king until the monarch was restored in 1660. In its current state, the United Kingdom does not have a single written constitution like the United States. Instead, the British system is governed by a number of documents, including Magna Carta and the Bill of Rights, which was established on the aftermath of the Revolution of 1688. As a result, the Queen doesn't have any political or executive role in the government's affairs, but rather has representational duties. One of these duties is the role Queen Elizabeth II plays in selecting the Prime Minister. Although the Queen does have the right to invite whomever she pleases to form a government, the chosen person has always been the leader of party that controls the Parliament in respect of the democratic election and the public voice. It's for this reason that in the United Kingdom, the Prime Minister is said to govern in her name. Another duty that the Queen serves as head of state is to give a speech at the opening of each new parliament and to maintain close contact with the Prime Minister. In fact, the British Prime Minister meets with the Queen on a weekly basis to discuss national matters. However, the Queen never makes any decisions that affect the government. A key tenet of Queen Elizabeth II's reign has been her steadfast following of traditions. She's always followed her constitutional duties with neutral governance and has avoided any acts of interference, impediment, or criticism of the governing parliament. Hence, Queen Elizabeth II merely serves as a symbol of the United Kingdom, while the chief executive of the government remains the Prime Minister. So then what else does the Queen do if she doesn't have an authoritative role in governing the British people? If we look at the daily calendar of the Queen, it's filled with what are called engagements. These engagements include, but are not limited to, hosting heads of state, taking diplomatic trips, hosting events at the palace, presenting citizens with awards, supporting charities, and more. In fact, the Queen is a titular patron of over 600 charities and has helped to raise over 1.4 billion British pounds. But that's not all. As the Queen cannot be everywhere and can't support everything, she relies on the support of the royal family. So if we look at the work of the entire royal family, then the monarch's support extends to over 3,000 charities altogether. These range from well-known charities such as the British Red Cross to new, smaller charities like the Reedham's Children's Trust, to regiments in the armed forces. Through these patronages, the Queen and the royal family add status to an organization, bring awareness to causes, and helps to raise funds. Pretty cool, right? If we look at some key stats, then in a year, the royal family has more than 3,000 engagements, entertains 100,000 guests, and answers 100,000 letters every year. That's a lot of smiling, waving, and shaking hands for the royal family. Now, as you may already know, the influence of the British Queen isn't limited to the United Kingdom. It's spread across the world through Commonwealth of Nations, which are former British colonies that have declared independence but retain the Queen as the figurehead. For example, citizens of Canada and Australia consider themselves subjects of Queen Elizabeth. And many of these nations feature the Queen on their currency. In these nations, the Queen's power and influence is mainly ceremonial, but nonetheless, one of the key duties of the royal family and the Queen is to show support, foster international cooperation, and trade links. This is why we sometimes see the royal family members on international tours and visits. An important question that often gets asked is, who pays the expense of the British Queen and the royal family? Can you take a guess? Well, the answer is a little complicated. The royal family is funded by three main sources. The first main source of funds is the public sovereign grant, which is supported by the government and covers things like maintenance of royal palaces and residence, travel and state visits, and public engagements. Funding for the sovereign grant comes from a percentage of the profits of the Crown Estate, which is a collection of lands and holdings that form the public estate, assets which are neither government property nor part of the monarch's private estate. The vast majority of earnings from the Crown Estate go into the British Treasury, and a portion from the profits, between 15 to 25%, are given to the Queen in the form of the sovereign grant. The second source of funds for the British Queen is the Duchy of Lancaster, which is a private estate of the British Monarch consisting of landholdings and other assets. The revenue profits of the duchy are presented to the sovereign each year and form part of the Privy Purse, providing income for both the official and private expenses of the monarch. In 2018, the Privy Purse received nearly £20 million, about $26 million in income. The income was used by the Queen, Prince Philip, Prince Edward, and Princess Anne. Now, you may be asking, what about Prince Charles, Prince William, and others? Well, there's a source of funds for them as well, and it is the Duchy of Cornwall. This is a crown entity holding land and other assets to produce an income for the Prince of Wales and his family. In 2019-2020 fiscal year, Prince Charles received nearly £22 million, about $30 million through this duchy. So as you can now guess, the Queen and the royal family have no shortage of funds for their activities or lifestyle. One last thing to note is that as Prince Harry and Meghan are no longer working royals, they are unfortunately not given any income from the public sovereign grant or the Duchy of Cornwall. Interesting, right? We hope you enjoyed this video and found it to satisfy your curiosity about the Queen. Before you leave, don't forget to hit the like button. Your support will help us to bring more of these videos to answer some fascinating and interesting curious questions. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, The Curious Path, to stay connected. Thanks for watching!